Urgently, drones in swarms are attacking Russia. The defense forces have picked up a furious pace. The enemy's air defense cannot cope with such a load, so it lets the strikes through one after another. Russian territory is ablaze with our vengeance. In the enemy's deep rear, the voice of fear is fading. The Ukrainian armed forces are going all in. Ukrainian ballistics tear the sky above Putin. The British storm shadow is heading straight for Moscow. A lightning-fast rout is imminent. The ground is slipping from under the Kremlin's feet. The most interesting part is yet to come. Don't miss everything about this coming up next.
Military facilities, energy, and the oil industry? The war has finally shifted onto Russian territory, and the Ukrainian armed forces seem to have set their targets in the enemy's rear and are ramping up long-range strikes.
One of the main goals is to force Russia to end the war. The aim is to make the cost of this war higher for Russia so that there is more motivation to bring it to an end.
At the same time, the defense forces are giving the Russians more motivation every day. Indeed, over the past few weeks, not a single night has passed in Russia without something didn't explode, didn't catch fire, or wasn't destroyed. We've gathered the most high-profile incidents. Undoubtedly, the most striking event regarding Russian blackouts was the Ukrainian armed forces attack on the Moscow region on the night of November 1st. Monitoring channels reported hundreds of drones that took off to bomb Russia. And they weren't wrong. Although Moscow's energy system held up, entire settlements around the capital were left without power. In particular, the Moscow suburbs and the city of Zhukovsky were left without electricity.
The Ukrainian armed forces have already carried out numerous strikes on stations and substations, and electricity and heating are periodically cut off in many cities of Russia and in the occupied territories. Let me remind you, Ukraine is conducting a campaign against Russian energy infrastructure in response to Russian terror targeting Ukraine's energy-generating facilities. I think that in December, this retaliatory campaign will reach a new level with the use of Flamingo missiles in almost every mode.
The campaign to destroy the Russian oil industry is also ongoing. In particular, the strikes in Tuapse were especially effective in recent days. The attack
on the port of Tuapse was quite large-scale and effective, as well as spectacular. Local residents began taking photos and recording videos of this attack. The beginning of this attack was also captured on video.
However, what helps the armed forces of Ukraine is by no means the alarmed Russians who suddenly in the fourth year have discovered that the war is now happening right outside their windows. It is intelligence data, including from the West, that makes it possible to carry out such precise strikes.
According to the strikes by Ukrainian UAVs, by the Russian side's own assessment, the following were hit. The central overpass, which is the main hub for pumping oil, and accordingly, we are specifically talking about a strike on an oil tanker, which at the moment of the attack was actually being loaded.
At the same time, when possible, the Ukrainian armed forces managed to kill several birds with one stone in a single strike. That is, they destroy facilities that are, on the one hand, very important for the Russian economy, and on the other, are clearly military targets.
The strike was carried out on the industrial giant of the Stavropol region, the Stavrolen petrochemical plant in the city of Budyonovsk. This is one of the largest producers of polyethylene, polypropylene, benzene, and other petrochemical components that are actively used in the military-industrial complex.
Analysts note that this was the first time a strike was carried out there. By the way, the plant is located 700 kilometers from Ukraine. Specifically under the enterprise supplies raw materials both to the domestic market and for export. Therefore, this attack damages not only the military-industrial complex but also the export revenues of the Russian budget. The defense forces are also targeting Russian facilities in the occupied territories. A few days ago, this was especially felt by the residents of Crimea after one of the largest attacks on the peninsula in recent months. In particular, the attacks targeted oil depots in Vardiske and Sevastopol.
The answer regarding this episode is as follows. In just 1 hour, 2 large oil facilities in Crimea were put out of commission. This means a complete loss of rear supply for the occupiers in this sector, especially against the backdrop of the destruction and disabling of the largest oil terminal in Feodosia and the ongoing gasoline shortage in Russia itself, which I suppose is the only historical source for replenishing Crimea's oil depots. From
the night of November 4th, drones as well as Storm Shadow missiles from the defense forces managed to inflict damage not only on Russian energy infrastructure and oil depots, but also significantly complicated their presence in the occupied territories, effectively disabling all military facilities within the affected zone.
Ukrainian drones struck substations in Luhansk, Alchevsk, Kadiivka, and Pervomaisk. These are temporarily occupied territories of Luhansk region. There are reports of widespread power outages for consumers, blockades on the territory of the Russian Federation in recent days, drone strikes by the Ukrainian Defense Forces. In Kursk region, this is Zhelezhnogorsk, targeting a substation. The city is completely without power. In Lipetsk region, it's the PCOS traction substation. Usman and accordingly the city of Oryev. A strike was carried out on the Oriol facility. This is what concerns the blackout.
As for military targets, analysts call the explosions at the dam near Belgorod one of the most successful long-range attacks by the Ukrainian armed forces. The strike was so precise that no civilians were harmed, but Russian units in the Kharkiv region found themselves cut off from their own forces due to the flooding, and the offensive failed. An important objective is to strike at Russia's logistical capabilities, ammunition depots, airfields, aircraft and troop concentrations, in order to create difficulties for Moscow's war machine. To strike at the centers from which Russia directs operations on the front and from which it can attack Ukraine's strategic infrastructure. At the same time, it's far too early for the Russians to relax, as announced by the head of the Unmanned Systems Forces, Madyar. This winter, Russian citizens will find out what a blackout really is. And now he reminded everyone that gas and oil burn very well, clearly hinting at new attacks on oil refineries.
As of November, according to estimates from the Russian side itself, about 40% of oil refineries on Russian territory have been put out of operation.
Well, as they always say, to be continued soon.
Every voice matters. Join our community, support independent journalism and help us bring you the truth from Ukraine. Become a member of Ukraine Today. Join us now.
Right now, the Pokrovsk meat grinder is sucking in the Russian army at the speed of light, while the Ukrainian armed forces are holding the line. Our troops are mowing down the enemy in droves. Budanov's airborne forces have radically changed the course of events. Ukrainian strength keeps its finger on the pulse. The enemy is exhausted, but still throws itself into the fray. Hundreds of thousands of Putin's soldiers are thirsty for blood. Putin is throwing all his artillery and drones into the slaughter. The fate of Donbas is being decided right now. The Ukrainian armed forces are standing like a wall, and they're keeping their trump cards up their sleeves. Could it be that a turning point on the front line will happen any day now? We'll tell you more about this in the following report. The decisive battle for Pokrovsk continues. Russian troops are advancing within the city, but Ukrainian forces are holding the defense and launching counterattacks, slowing down the enemy's actions. The defense forces continue to clear Pokrovsk of occupiers now in the northern part of the city. This became possible because over the past few days they managed to reinforce with additional personnel and equipment. After a successful airborne operation, additional special forces units joined the GUR commandos who had secured certain positions and established a ground corridor. According to the President of Ukraine, various special operations are taking place in Pokrovsk, but most of them should not be discussed. Russian troops are trying to break through the Ukrainian armed forces' defenses, attacking simultaneously in several directions and concentrating the largest number of soldiers and officers here.
According to various estimates, about 100,000 Russian troops are directly or indirectly involved in this entire operation around Pokrovsk, according to the Ukrainian command. These are approximate figures. Just to give you an idea of what kind of forces have been deployed, I'll go even further and say, from the direction, there have been instances from the Sumy region and from the direction of Kostiantynivka. Forces have been redeployed from these directions toward Pokrovsk to reinforce because there aren't enough people.
We're talking about so-called suicide squads, that is, contract soldiers with an average life expectancy of 12 days. Also, accordingly, these are special units of the Russian army, plus of course Marine brigades. In particular, the 155th Marine Brigade has been redeployed to the Pokrovsk direction from the Kursk region.
According to the Institute for the Study of War, the occupiers have advanced in the southern part of Mirnograd and East Rodensky, gradually approaching the city itself.
Pokrovsk is a city in the Donetsk region of eastern Ukraine. It is recognized for its historical background and serves as an important hub for local industry and transportation. The city is home to a diverse community and has played a significant role in the development of the surrounding area. It should be noted that, and it is important to mention for your awareness, the occupiers are trying to intensify their offensive in order to take direct control of the AFU positions. The AFU are conducting armed counterattacks to prevent further advances by the Russian occupiers.
The enemy is currently attempting to completely encircle the city of Pokrovsk as well as the nearby settlements in the surrounding area. The occupiers are steadily increasing their numbers and presence. Air,
attacks, including the use of glide bombs and drones. The situation has become as critical as possible from the start, and now it doesn't matter anymore because Russian drones are present there, Russian sabotage and reconnaissance groups are already there, shells are flying, and the situation for the movement of Ukrainian troops has deteriorated as much as possible in recent weeks.
According to the General Staff, Ukrainian defenders repelled 55 enemy assault actions over the past day. In the course of these combined attacks,
up to a tank battalion is being used. For the Russian armed forces and the Federation, that's more than 30 units of heavy armored vehicles. Moreover, the tactic is used regardless of the cost. The occupiers are well aware of the superiority of Ukraine's defense forces in the use of FPV drones, and that no more than 20% of the heavy armored vehicles and accordingly of the personnel will actually reach the positions of the Ukrainian defense forces.
Despite the enemy's active actions, Ukrainian soldiers continue to hold their positions and destroy enemy forces. The situation remains difficult, but
the situation remains under control. The settlements of Ukivske, Zatishok and Shakhov are currently being monitored. At this time, the occupiers are attempting to further intensify their offensive actions on the flanks of the Ukrainian Rocky Group, specifically in the area near Vladimirivka, with the ongoing threat of advancing toward Hrishine. These are combined attacks using armored vehicles, also in the area of Rodyansk.
On the eastern flank of the Pokrovsk operation in the area of Dobropilya, Ukrainian forces have liberated part of the territory previously advanced upon by Russian troops. According to analysts, Donetsk region remains the main direction of Russia's offensive this winter, with the aim of achieving a tangible result by the spring of 2025.